were asked to go around the room and talk about our race/culture. The hired facilitators said, any white person who displays discomfort or distress when asked to discuss their race is not actually feeling distress. What they're exhibiting is a power play, and that is white fragility.
Today I sit down with Jodi Shaw, who has become an influential figure in the growing movement opposing training based on critical race theory in academia and beyond. She made waves when she started speaking out in 2019 about the increasing illiberalism she saw at her then employer and alma mater, Smith College.
Because it takes a while to build the conviction and to understand that there's nothing actually wrong with you. The feeling that something's not right is because something isn't right.
This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Yanya Kellick. Jodi Shaw, such a pleasure to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Well, so first of all, congratulations on being a hero of intellectual freedom, an award given to you by ACTA. I think you're the only non-academic to have won this award. Dorian Abbott, Joshua Katz are co-winners with you. So congratulations.
Thank you.
You've said this before, and I can't remember if it was to me or I saw it in some of the materials I was reviewing earlier, but that the important thing is to somehow, in this bizarre cultural reality that we're facing today, is to somehow have these support systems exist for people pre them making the decision, right? To talk, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. A journalist asked me, what would you say to somebody who's just stood up? How would you support them or something like that? And my response was, I think there's actually more support needed before that happens, because it takes a while to build the conviction and to understand that there's nothing actually wrong with you, that this feeling, the feeling that something's not right is because something isn't right. And you have a right, and you can stand up and say something about it. And so, I mean, a lot of people, they accidentally do something and then they find out. But for somebody who decides to stand up, it takes a long time to get to that point of understanding that not only that you're not wrong, but that this stuff is wrong. And two, that to assess your resources, if you will, once you've decided you want to take action. What kind of action do I want to take? And how am I going to handle the fallout? And kind of get your ducks in a row first. So that's, I think, when the most support is needed. Because if people don't even know, if they're still confused about social justice and am I doing the right thing and am I a bad person for questioning this, then you're not even close to being able to withstand standing up and taking action, to prepare yourself.
Well, if there's one thing that the last 2 years have taught me, it's how incredibly strong the social pressure or social influence or something like that is on humans by other humans, right? I frankly did not understand this. This has been a huge lesson for me. I want to kind of follow up a little bit on something you said in your acceptance speech. And it has to do with how you understand the stories we tell, the importance or the value or the role of the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves and the world. And you make this distinction, between stories that are ours and stories that come from outside, and how these stories impact our emotions. So this is a very interesting perspective on. Tell me about this. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, I was going to receive this award, Heroes of Intellectual Freedom. So I was trying to think of what is intellectual freedom. What does that mean, really? So I started thinking about the intellect, and I started thinking about that the intellect is not a reliable narrator. That's what I decided. And that intellectual freedom is only really freedom if we have ownership over our intellectual process in the first place. So what I mean by that is And something that's not discussed often is the realm of the emotions and the role that that plays in intellectual freedom. So I saw a bumper sticker one time. This just came to me before I was receiving the word. It said, "Don't believe everything you think." And I think that's important to remember, something to remind ourselves. So when I'm talking about feelings, when I have a feeling, it's the feeling, it's basically alerting me something's going on. I don't know what it is because the feeling doesn't have a language. The feeling doesn't, it is in the thought process, just a basic feeling. It's not good or bad, but it alerts, it calls attention to our intellect. It kind of says, hey, there's something interesting happening over here. Or, ooh, something doesn't feel good. Come check this out. And then our intellect comes in and it acts as a translator and interprets that feeling and tells us what's going on. Oh yeah, I'm feeling jealous. Why? And then we explain that feeling or we assign meaning to it. And sometimes the intellect gets it right and sometimes it doesn't. In the case of this ideology, at Smith, I had a feeling something felt bad about this ideology. And I was told, my intellect was fooled because my intellect was convinced by the learned faculty and administrators at Smith that the reason I was having this doubtful feeling that something was off was an evidence of implicit racial bias. That my feeling of something not quite right with this ideology was actually evidence of the ideology itself. And so my intellect was fooled, and I went along for a while trying to suppress the feeling, therefore. After a long time of wrangling with my own mind and seeking outside sources, I came to understand that the reason I was having a bad feeling about this stuff was because this stuff was bad. But prior to that, I thought the reason I'm having a bad feeling about this stuff is because I'm bad. It's basically what the ideology says. And so that's why we must be wary of the intellect. And that when our intellect interprets a feeling for us, we have to be sure, we're basically telling ourselves a story about that feeling. And we need to make sure that that story came from us and not someone else, not Smith College. So Smith College I had effectively allowed an outside authority to hijack my intellect and interpret a feeling for me that was not my best interest. And so I think many of us, this is not particular to this ideology, many of us have been telling ourselves stories that don't belong to us since birth. And that is, culture plays an influence. Like, you have these feelings because, or who to love and how you should love, and what's funny and what isn't. I mean, I think I've definitely had the experience where I find something funny, it's a feeling, I just laugh. And then my intellect steps in and says, oh, no, you're not supposed to laugh at that. You're not supposed to laugh at that. You're not supposed to find that funny. And then I try to suppress the laughter. As a spiritual seeker, as an artist, as an anthropologist, as someone who's very curious about psychology and other people and myself, I've worked for a long time to try to examine the stories that my intellect tells me, which are oftentimes in response to an emotion I'm having, and tried to suss out, did that story come from me? Or is that somebody else's? Did I just unconsciously adopt somebody else's interpretation there? And tried to push out what's not mine and develop my own story that works for me.